The government of Brazil has deployed special troops across the state of Ceará to tackle a sharp increase in gang violence. The Justice Ministry ordered the deployment following dozens of attacks on banks, buses and stores this week. Around 300 troops have been sent to the city of Fortaleza, where gangs torched service stations and damaged an overpass with explosives. So far, at least 86 suspects have been arrested. This is the first state intervention since President Jair Bolsonaro took office last week. Our correspondent in Brazil, Brian Meyer, brings us more.
Violence continues to escalate in the northeastern Brazilian state of Ceará. The federal government has sent hundreds of security personnel into the state to try and put a stop to it. What's interesting about this is that the state of Ceará is governed by a member of the PT party, Camilo Santana, and Jair Bolsonaro recently said he's not the president to the Northeasterners, that Lula is the real president for these PT governors who dominate Northeastern politics. So what this really represents is a test to see how the new government is going to work with the opposition. But it also scares a lot of people because it represents a continuing escalation of militarization in Brazil. Now, the military already took over the state security apparatus in Rio de Janeiro last year, and people are wondering if this isn't a backdoor attempt to do the same thing in Ceará, which is a state which is controlled by a political party that Jair Bolsonaro refers to as criminals the whole time. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in the next few days. But for now, since the arrival of the national security forces, the violence has not stopped. In fact, it appears that it increased last night. São Paulo, Brian Mir, Telesur.
And in Venezuela, the president of the National Constituent Assembly, Diosdado Cabello, has rejected the threats made by the so-called Lima group.
The thing is, the Lima group now wants to get involved in a very serious issue of our territory. Other than that, they continue to demand that President Maduro refuse to assume the presidency on the 10th of January. How is he supposed to do that? How can he refuse when he was elected by the people?
And Mexico reacted, rejecting this latest declaration of the so-called Lima group. Speaking to reporters on Saturday, the Mexican president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, had this to say.
We will respect the constitutional principles of non-intervention and of people's own self-determination in regards to foreign policy. Therefore, we did not sign the letter written by the Lima group to condemn the Venezuelan government. We will not meddle in the internal affairs of other nations, because we do not want other governments to meddle with issues that should only concern the Mexican people. For many years, Mexico's foreign policy has been driven by these principles.
And the Bolivian President Evo Morales congratulated the Mexican government for their stance and tweeted, "We praise the democratic government of Mexico for defending the principle of non-interventionism and declining to back the conspiracy led by the U.S. through the Lima group. Democracy is based on peace, dialogue, and self-determination of peoples." And a new leadership for Venezuela's National Assembly, which has been suspended and held in contempt by the Supreme Court in 2017, was sworn on Saturday. The new president of the Assembly stood in support of the recent declarations of the so-called Lima group against the government of President Nicolás Maduro. More on the following story.
A swearing-in ceremony marks the beginning of a new year for the National Assembly, as established by the Constitution. But this act is currently invalid, and it is so under the country's highest judiciary body because those who led the National Assembly back in 2017 was sworn in with the participation of 3 indigenous assembly members who were linked to alleged electoral fraud. Following this, the Supreme Court of Justice ordered that the National Assembly be unincorporated and ruled they were in contempt of the government. Therefore, every act they perform is illegal. The National Assembly as it exists today was elected under the same authority with which Venezuelans re-elected President Nicolás Maduro on May 28, 2018. But the opposition-led assembly has not wanted to coexist with the other 4 public powers of Venezuela. And now they continue to openly push for the government to be overthrown.
Reafirmar la ilegitimidad de Nicolás.
We hereby reaffirm the illegitimacy of Nicolás Maduro. There wasn't any election on May 20th, so starting on January 10, he will be still in the presidency. Therefore, this National Assembly, as the only legitimate power that was elected by the Venezuelan people, therefore, this National Assembly, as the only legitimate power that was elected by the Venezuelan people, will assume the task of representing the people and create a body to aid in the transition of power.
Before this point was made and before the swearing-in ceremony started, some opinions were expressed on the fringes that revealed once more the crossroads the opposition finds itself in between the extreme and the less extreme ideas.
The presidency of the nation and the headquarters of a transitional government must be established in the same way explained in a concise and brave statement made by the Lima Group.
Any solution must be constitutional.
On May 28th, over 8 million Venezuelans took part in the elections. President Maduro faced off against opposition candidates who had no option but to disobey the call made by other opposition members to not take part in the elections. From those 8 million, 6,300,000 decided to re-elect President Maduro.
What if the rest of us say they are usurpers? Because we think those past elections were invalid, unconstitutional, and illegal. This is not how democracy works. Democracy starts with the acceptance of people's decisions.
But that is not everything. The new heads of the National Assembly sold out Venezuela's sovereignty within minutes by supporting the document of the Lima Group. A document which questioned the actions of the government and of the armed forces in defense of the Essequibo territory, which was historically been in dispute with Guyana. Even the Secretary of State of the United States, Mike Pompeo, congratulated the Lima Group. He said the US applauds the Lima Group for standing up for democracy in Venezuela. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Ariasa responded in another tweet. Pompeo congratulated the Lima cartel for fulfilling its mission and giving out orders to support a coup. While all this happens, preparations for the swearing-in ceremony of Nicolás Maduro on January 10th continue.
Time for a first break viewing from the south. You can find us on Twitter at Telesur English and my personal account at Laura P. Telesur. Stay with us. we are back. The new year has arrived in Pillaro, a colorful city in the province of Tungurahua in Ecuador. The Hablada of Pillaro is a celebration in which dancers become characters disguised in devil masks. They dance and ask for the renewal and purification of the soul. The one-week celebration began on January 1st. Nearly 30,000 visitors arrived to this Andean city to celebrate the new year and to dance with the devil. And the hero of the Republic of Cuba, José Ramón Fernández Álvarez, has died at the age of 95. He was an important military figure and committed to the Cuban Revolution. One of the historic leaders of the Cuban Revolution, Fernández also served as Minister of Education and President of the Cuban Olympic Committee. President Miguel Díaz-Canel tweeted, "José Ramón Fernández will be forever honored. He has an exemplar soldier of the revolution and a genuine creative interpreter of the ideas of Fidel Castro in education and sport. He was committed until his final breath." And the first classic car contest has taken place in the streets of Havana, with over 200 cars participating. The contest seeks to promote the preservation of the historic cars despite the economic blockade against the island, which has led to a shortage in spare parts. Despite this, classic cars owners have become auto innovators. Out of 218 cars, only 15 made it to the final to compete for the best kept and most original car. The winner of the competition was a 1956 Plymouth. Judges says it was 98% true to its original condition. And in Mexico, most underprivileged children have also been able to enjoy a Three Kings Day. Thank you to All You Need Is Love charity and its volunteers.
In the early hours, these young Mexicans from the All You Need Is Love charity meet in Mexico City to give out toys to those children who didn't receive a visit from Melchor, Gaspar, and Baltasar.
Toys donated by volunteers, by people. Our goal is to bring a little joy to children on the streets.
Over the last few weeks, they have spent time collecting new and used toys. All go through a quality control inspection to ensure they are fit for their new owners.
We have a toy hospital where we repair toys before they are gifted.
Walking through the streets, they look out for indigenous, migrant, or homeless children to receive toy.
Well, there are people that don't have anything, so I want to spread a little of happiness to children.
All You Need Is Love have been organizing giveaways and community projects for over 6 years. They believe that even the smallest gesture can make all the difference.
Helping each other is what I think will help us be a little bit more united to move forward in our society.
In Mexico City, more than 14,000 children live on the streets. According to these young people, making a difference requires a coordinated effort by government and social organizations.
Now to Chile, where a heat wave has struck the central part of that country. Lasting for the past 4 days, it has affected dozens of families. Paula Dragnik tells us more.
Central Chile has endured a heat wave for the past 4 days. 5 fires in the city of Lima have shared a dramatic video on social media, showing that young people caused a fire in the city, causing devastation of hundreds of hectares. The recovery process is beginning, and investigation into the whereabouts of the perpetrators.
And in Jamaica is to graduate from the IMF program in November, and Prime Minister Andrew Holmes has outlined his plans for a new Jamaica Post-International Monetary Fund. He assured Jamaicans the government will act responsibly to build on the years of sacrifice, adding that as Jamaica heads towards a more globalized world and deals with the challenges of climate change, all measures the government take will be mainstreamed so that the country can recover from crisis more effectively. And the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, has officially opened the state-of-the-art Ross University of Medicine at the Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center. The 40-year-old institution now has a permanent campus in Barbados, and classes are set to begin on Monday. Security forces in Sudan have used tear gas and stun grenades to disperse protesters who were trying to reach the presidential palace. Protesters were chanting for freedom and peace before they were fired on. Anti-government protests erupted last month over food shortages and rising bread prices. University workers were reportedly prevented from joining the protest by security forces, who arrested at least 8 people. International organizations have reported that 37 people have been killed during these protests so far, while the government puts the death toll at 19. Time for a second break. Stay with us, connecting the Global South. Welcome back. Protesters took to the streets of Madagascar to oppose the outcome of the country's recent presidential elections. Police fired tear gas to disperse about 500 supporters of Marc Ravalomanana, the losing candidate in December's election. 4 people were arrested after a group of demonstrators fired back at the police with Molotov cocktails. Ravalomanana has called the results fraudulent and has filed a complaint with the country's constitutional court.
We were sprayed with tear gas while we were praying. That is why we are complaining and asking the entire Malagasy population to come and demonstrate with us. Because the country is at its lowest point. We are being colonized once again, and the people will never accept it.
We will never accept this, no matter what happens to us, even if it kills us. It's our boat, and we don't want it to be hijacked. What is happening is driven from the outside by the French.
A portrait of former Guinean President Sékou Touré in the city of Conakry is causing controversy. The portrait of today is located on a bridge where people were hanged by his government in 1971. The graffiti also includes a mural of African heroes of independence. An association of victims' relatives have said the portrait is insensitive and insulting. The spiritual leader of Eastern Orthodox Christians recognized independence of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine during a ceremony in Istanbul, Turkey. This formalizes the split with the Russian Church, to which it had been tied for more than 4 centuries. Let's hear from our correspondent in Istanbul, Pedro Chavarry.
A split between Russia and Ukraine on a religious level has been formalized during a ceremony in Istanbul. This comes after the Constantinople Patriarchy granted the Orthodox Church of Ukraine independence from the Russian Church. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and Metropolitan Epifani, the new head of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, were present at the event. The Moscow Patriarch claims to have oversight not only of Orthodox communities in Russia, but also of most of the areas in the former Soviet Union. Regardless, the Russian Church has been struggling to maintain its hold over what it views as a wayward province ever since Ukraine declared independence in 1991. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church has been beholden to Moscow for hundreds of years, and Ukraine's leaders see church independence as vital to tackling Russian meddling.
Hundreds of female members of the Yellow Vest movement protested in Paris on Sunday. The women say their aim is to reclaim the peaceful anti-government protests that have turned violent. They waved yellow balloons and some pushed strollers. Organizers also recalled the role of women during the French Revolution. This is the 8th week of the nationwide movement that started to oppose hikes in fuel taxes.
I have a little girl who is 8 years old. I work and I've had difficult times, and I can't make ends meet at the end of the month. I do not have expensive tastes. I just want to be able to pay my bills and eat well. Even that is no longer possible today, and it's getting worse and worse. So it's really time that people unite.
On Saturday, we spoke with freelance journalist Jonathan Baudouin, who attended the Yellow Vest protests. One of the topics we discussed was what the main complaints of the protesters are.
The first complaint was about the rise of taxation of oil. There's the beginning. It was the beginning, but with time, other demands appeared, such as an increase of wages, and especially the minimum wage, and also an increase for pensions, and demands for more democracy in the French Republic, with the proposal of a citizen referendum proposed by the Yellow Vest these last weeks.
And a second round of negotiations between Yemen's government and Houthi fighters could take place soon. According to the head of the Higher Revolutionary Committee, Mohammed Ali al-Houthi, a meeting under the watch of the UN could take place in Jordan. If it goes on, talks are set to center around the failed economy. Now let's take a look at other stories from around the world.
Close to 50 migrants stranded off the coast of Malta are growing frustrated after spending 2 weeks at sea. Supplies are running out and the crew are exhausted as European countries refuse permission to dock and children on board are sick. Pope Francis has urged EU leaders to show concrete solidarity with migrants.
49 migrants rescued in the Mediterranean by 2 NGO ships have been on board for several days now, waiting to be able to disembark in some port. I appeal to European leaders to show some concrete solidarity with respect to these people.
Mourners have laid candles for 5 teenage girls killed in a Poland fire. They were celebrating a birthday and were caught in a fire at an escape room interactive game location in the northern city of Kozali. One man has also been seriously injured. Violence has once again broken out in Myanmar's Rakhine state. It started after Rakhine rebels allegedly killed 13 Myanmar police. In 2017, at least 6,500 ethnic Rohingyas were killed and more than 600,000 were displaced because of an armed crackdown.
Like this, we've come to the end of News You Brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net, where of course you can read and watch our opinion articles and find our special interviews. Stay with Telesur until next time.